Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us at Startup Grind this morning. Today's event is brought to you by Spark Centre, a regional innovation centre in Durham region. So as the Eastern Ontario chapter of Startup Grind, Spark Centre is thrilled to bring you these monthly events to inspire, motivate, and challenge you. My name is Christina Savannah, and I'm the marketing director for Spark Centre. So generally, our startup grinds happen on the last Thursday of the month, but today's chat is taking place a week early to be part of the Business Advisory Center of Durham's Do It in Durham Entrepreneurship Week. Now in its 10th year, we are thrilled to once again support this community collaboration. There are over 40 events and workshops happening this week, if you can believe it. So be sure to visit doitindurham.biz to see if you can catch any of the other events that are happening before the end of the week. So it is Global Entrepreneurship Week, and Women's Entrepreneurship Day is also coming up on November 19th. So we're thrilled to be partnering with the PARO Centre for Women's Enterprise for today's event, and we're so excited to hear from today's feature speaker, Denise Atkinson. So lastly, before we begin, we'd like to say thank you to Spark Centre's elite partners. These events would not be happening without the support from them. So thank you so much to Bearskin & Parr LLP, Finance Without Borders, RDP Associates, Leighton, and Suresh Law. So the interview portion of today's event will begin shortly, but don't forget to stay tuned after the interview for some networking. If you haven't tried the networking on Hopin's platform before, it's fun, it's easy, and it's a great way to meet some new faces. So make sure you do that. Okay, I'll be remiss if I don't mention our quarterly publication. It's something I like to talk about all the time, the Spark Business and Innovation magazine. Our winter issue, which is all about healthcare and health tech, is launching soon. So be sure to visit thesparkmagazine.ca to subscribe to receive your free, yes, free, print and or digital copy. The media kit is actually also available on the website. So if you're interested in advertising with the magazine, or maybe you have a story that you think fits our editorial mandate, please email our content directors at editorial@sparkcentre.org. Okay, enough of that. It's time to get on with it. We're thrilled to be putting on today's event in partnership with PARO Centre for Women's Enterprise. And I'd like to welcome today's moderator, Melissa Cook from PARO.
Good morning, Christina. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a great session.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As Christina mentioned, my name is Melissa Cook. I am the program manager here at PARO Centre for Women's Enterprise. If you haven't heard of PARO, which I'm sure lots of you have, PARO is a women-centered community economic development organization that focuses on helping women with their businesses across the province, and regardless of where they are geographically or on their business journey. PARO has a lot of kind of diverse programs and services that are designed to help women where they are. We do startup, we do scale up, we do export, we're a kind of a one-stop shop for all things business related. So yes, please check out our website. PARO, we kind of have a different approach to working with women. We do provide programs and services that you might have experienced before, but we also do a lot of one-on-one work with women entrepreneurs who are ready to start and scale and grow their businesses in Ontario. So thank you for today, and congratulations again to all the folks involved in the Entrepreneurship Week in the Durham region. That's very exciting, and I'm sure there's lots of amazing things going on around, so be sure to check out that kind of stuff. I am very excited to welcome up a friend of mine and a killer entrepreneur up here in Thunder Bay, named Denise Atkinson. So when Denise comes on, we're going to give her an opportunity to chat about her experiences as a women entrepreneur, as an Indigenous women entrepreneur, and chat a little bit about her story. Before we do get into it, I would like to take a minute to acknowledge that folks from all over the place who are joining us today are living and working and playing on traditional lands of Indigenous folks in Canada and in Ontario. And while we like to acknowledge the contributions to the great contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis folks across the province, we also like to acknowledge that there's a lot of work to be done to get to a reconciliatory standpoint. But all the work that we do here at PARO and at Spark Centre as well is trying to work toward that reconciliation piece, especially by utilizing our partnerships like we have here and learning and growing together. So thank you, Miigwech, for joining us today, Denise. I'm so excited to be chatting with you once again. How are you doing?
Good. Miigwech, Melissa. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you, Startup Grind and Spark Center, for inviting me. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Denise Atkinson, and I am the founder and managing director of Tea Horse. We're an Indigenous-owned premium tea and wild rice company located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people in Thunder Bay. I'm Anishinaabe Ikwe, which means Ojibwe woman from the Red Rock First Nation, just outside of Nipigon. I am passionate about growing the Indigenous food and foodways and contributing to the success of other women entrepreneurs, and especially Indigenous women entrepreneurs and led businesses. So yeah, Tea Horse, we started as a tea reseller, but then we developed our own tea blends using Canadian wild rice. No one else in the tea world is doing it. No one else in the wild rice world is doing it. So we're doing something really innovative.
That's so great. And just for the group here, I've been to Denise's house, and I've been in her very own kitchen, and enjoyed the fresh bread and all the little treats that you guys have there to complement your teas. And it is something else. And I'm not a huge tea drinker, but I think you almost converted me. So
today I'm drinking our newest blend, which is called manoomin chai. So it's a black tea blended with masala spices and our roasted wild rice. And it's amazing, and it smells wonderful.
Yeah. And people are able to order that, and you send it out, right? We'll get into the real questions, but let's just get that out of the way first. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. It's actually not even on our website yet. It's so new. It'll be added this week. Yeah.
Cool. So you guys, you have obviously the innovation is there, the new kind of ideas. Can you talk a little bit about like the early years of your business and what kind of shaped the idea, and how that kind of affected like your personal and your business connection to each other?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my early years and what shaped me. I was born and raised, on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people. I'm a member of the Red Rock First Nation, like I said, and I was raised in a traditional, land-based Anishinaabe home. I spent a lot of time on the land with my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, cousins, mom, sisters. My grandmother was a true entrepreneur. She never spoke a word of English. She only spoke Ojibwe. She was a trapper. She sold her furs to the HBC. I come from a strong line of matriarchs, grandmothers, my mother, my aunts. They really influenced me. As an entrepreneur, like what started too as a kid, we used to collect pop bottles. We would go around to the neighbors, collect pop bottles. So that was my little, dip in being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Cash them in, buy some penny candy at the corner store. We'd set up Kool-Aid stands, not lemonade stands, Kool-Aid. That was our choice. And sell it to the neighborhood kids to make money, so we could go to the pool hall and play pinball machines. Later in life, as an adult, I was still entrepreneurial, and I started selling vintage clothing. Vintage clothing, 20, 25 years ago it was popular, but not really the way it's taken off now. So I had a vintage clothing shop called Mustang Sally Vintage. I sold at the local farmers market in Thunder Bay. I would travel to New York City, which was super exciting, and purchase wholesale used clothes, vintage clothes, and resell them at the farmers market.
Awesome.
So
that entrepreneurialism has kind of been with you since day one.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that, and I love that the story of the pop bottles. That's really cute. Your matriarchal lineage sounds like I can see it all in you today. So that's fantastic. So what did you do? So you did a little bit of the Mustang Sally, right? So what did you do before that? Were you in any kind of what kind of led up to the tea idea in your past kind of history?
So I've actually worked for the public service, since college, from graduating from college, high school. First, I worked at Confederation College as a secretary. Then I moved to Vancouver, where I applied and got a job with the federal government as an administrative, legal assistant. Transferred to Toronto, worked with the Department of Justice as administrative assistant, eventually getting a job as an administrative officer in the Toronto regional office. So it was huge. I worked in large organizations from 800 lawyers, and then moved back to Thunder Bay, where I was working in an office with 5 people. So I've done a lot of things in my lifetime, but always still having that entrepreneurial streak in me. So I was working in the government still and doing my Mustang Sally vintage on the side on the weekends and the evenings. So yeah, I've done a lot.
And I think that's what part of makes an entrepreneur strong, right? Is like that journey and being able to diversity pick up, from all of your experiences, and you can kind of pick and choose, take some and leave some, and then really build that into your business, right? And that's really,
And then what led to tea was I was always a tea drinker. My partner, Mark, always a tea drinker. Tea has always been a part of my life, my family. Like whether we were blueberry picking, there was always a pot of tea, whether it be black tea, Labrador tea off the land, wintergreen mint. It's a natural leaf that grows, on the rocks in the blueberry patch. So there was always tea there. There was a small business in Thunder Bay that sold tea, one that I really liked. It was a lemon green tea. And I went in there one day to buy the tea. And, I thought, it'd be really interesting to run a tea business. So I asked the fellow, do you ever think of selling this place? And he wasn't, really interested in selling it. So I came home and I said to Mark, we should start a tea business. So there I was Googling, looking at tea businesses. And I noticed that Toronto had this tea festival, and it was around coming up to my birthday. And I said to Mark, why don't we go to Toronto and check out this tea festival? It's 2 days. We'll just check it out, stay for an hour, and then visit my family because my sisters all live down there. So we went to this tea festival and we're like, wow, we thought we knew tea. No, it's a whole culture. There was people from all over the world. The place was packed. We spent the whole 2 days there. We just going from table to table. They had events, they had tea tastings, all about tea culture. It was fantastic. So from there, we thought, you know what, let's try this. Let's bring premium tea to Thunder Bay. There's a couple places that sell tea, but the people that we really were drawn to were the top tea people in Canada. So we developed some, working relationships with them. We did some tea training in Montreal, and lo and behold, a place turned up on Bay Street that was for rent, and we didn't have to have a lease. It was month to month. So we opened our little tea shop with just, with thrift store furniture and just our own money. So that tea shop, it was fun. It was different, but it's a tough life. Brick and mortar, it's a tough life.
For sure.
Mark and I, we had to be there. One of us always had to be there. So after about maybe 10 months, 11 months, we thought, you know what? We don't know if we can continue with this. It's just, we're not spring chickens. And, it was a lot of work. And really, it didn't allow us to be creative. We were serving tea. We were reselling other people's tea. It was great to, get your feet wet in a retail environment, but we realized really fast that wasn't what we wanted to do. So we decided we were told that we needed to, coming up on the year, we would have to sign a lease. And we thought this is a good time to, bow out and just go e-commerce, tried e-commerce.
Yeah.
I'll just add one more thing. Sorry. In the meantime, sorry, I talk a lot.
That's okay. That's what we're doing here. That's great.
In the meantime, we were getting tea samples from all over the world. And we received this tea sample from a tea studio in southern India. They call it an experimental tea studio that's right from the management to the tea makers, it's all women. It's a women-run
cool.
tea studio manufacturing. And so we got this sample called kukicha, which is a twig tea. So it's the twig or the branch as well as the tea leaves. They turn it into a tea. And I opened it up and I said to Mark, I said, this looks like wild rice. And genmai cha, which is a Japanese green tea with roasted brown rice or white rice. That was always my morning tea. That it's earthy. It's a beautiful tea. So I said to him, maybe we should try doing something with wild rice, kind of like a genmai cha. Like we can blend it with Japanese tea and, it'll be like a fusion of cultures, of flavors.
Love it.
With the Japanese tea and the North American wild rice, like let's try this. So again, that's where not having a brick and mortar gave us the ability to really do some research and development. And it's been a long haul to try and get the process down right. So that's where we are now.
Well, and I love that. And I love, it's almost like different forms of bread, right? Like cultures have different ways that they cook bread. They have different ways that they integrate tea, right? And for Indigenous folks in this area, as far as I know, like brewing tea into medicine was a really important part of the culture, right? So I love how you've done that. I think that's great. And I love that tea.
It, like I was saying, in many Indigenous cultures, leaves, roots, flowers, grains, they're infused into a tea, like a tea.
Mm-hmm.
I do tea because really tea is Camellia sinensis. That's what a tea is, but everything else is considered an herbal or a tisane. But I mean,
I'm going to write that down.
I grew up calling everything tea.
Yeah.
So the use of our wild rice or manoomin, manoomin is the Ojibwe word for wild rice. And I do try and incorporate the Ojibwe, the correct term when talking about, I've been talking about wild rice, but I try to call it manoomin, which is, in my language. So as the key ingredient in all my tea blends, it's carrying on the traditions of my people, of Indigenous people, so yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Just a reminder too, as we're talking, please feel free to toss any chats or any questions in the comments here, and I'll make sure to get those over to Denise. But speaking of like your transition to brick and mortar, and maybe especially in light of like kind of as you transition from that pre-COVID, as you moved on to pretty much exclusively online, right?
Yes.
So how can you talk a little bit about like how that has changed from that brick and mortar business to being sold totally online? And do you have any advice for entrepreneurs that might be considering doing the same thing?
Well, it was interesting. We had already started, I'm thinking of COVID. I'm kind of thinking ahead of myself.
That's okay.
So we work with an amazing company and person in Thunder Bay, Dina Campbell, who owns Nalu Web Design. And so right from the beginning, she was working with us we already had a website, like just an informative website about, where we were, our tea. But she was able to add an e-commerce platform to the website. So when we closed the shop, it was, it linked right. What's the term? It was a good transition, I guess, to e-commerce online. She advised us when just incorporating the e-commerce platform that we needed to use social media tools, Facebook, Instagram, to drive traffic to the online store. So she really provided a lot of education for us on becoming e-commerce. And really for people starting out, I think it's an excellent cost-effective way to run a business. Because like I say, brick and mortar, it's great, but it's very expensive to start up.
A lot of overhead.
Yeah. Working with a web designer who knows you and you trust and knows what your brand is all about, that's really important too.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great tool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. And I mean, getting that kind of set up at the offset, it can be a little bit more, maybe you're putting out a little bit more money, you're putting a little bit more time, but it is nice to have that kind of foundation built, right? So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about your kind of journey, your stumbling blocks? What was your least favorite part? What was your most favorite part? Like, how did that kind of flow for you from start up to where you are now? Because you're taking the tea business by global force. I know. I'm so proud of you, and so is PARO, and so tell us about that story.
So I think that my favorite part has been like the strong networking with other women entrepreneurs. PARO, like you guys are doing an amazing job. Like I just, you got my back. Like I just feel there's just this strong, supportive entrepreneurial group and advisors that they contribute to the success of all of us. Like we all want, everybody wants the same thing, so that's amazing. Least favorite, accounting and bookkeeping.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Finding a professional you can trust and depend on. Like I work with several companies until I found this amazing woman that I work with now who like keeps me in line, keeps me on track. I ask a question, she knows the tax law. That's so important because that's something that I kind of like, I got to do my bookkeeping. Oh, I think I need to move furniture in my office. Like I just put it off.
Totally. And like when you work with creatives, like, I mean, not always, not as a rule, but like my Gail with her birch bark basket stuff, she needs the support on like the financial side. She's like, first of all, I don't have time for it. And secondly, I don't want to do it. Right. So it's like, it's not fun. It quells the creative process. So I totally hear that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's all fair. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, we kind of touched on some resources that you had along the way with the website and the PARO stuff, and how we've kind of been there to help you. Actually, just now's a good time to mention Denise was actually part of our pilot first biz camp for Indigenous women that we had. We call them biz camps, but they're boot camps, and that was called Mukumkwe, which means she rises in Anishinaabe. And that was a ton of fun. That was a pilot. You guys were all guinea pigs. We were testing it all out, and it was a raving success. And now we're on our fourth one, actually. So that's great. Yeah. So those resources were helpful to you, right, Denise? Are there any other ones that you can?
As far as resources and organizations, like I say, PARO has been there from the beginning, from my first micro loan for through our lending circles for $500, and you pay it back and you just kind of build up. The biz growth grants, yes, they helped me buy equipment. And then Karen Evans from PARO, who's my business advisor and is amazing. Any kind of grant she hears that I would qualify for, she sends me an email. She she looks through the application form. Like I'll do the application and she'll critique it before I submit it. So with those kind of grants, I was able to go on a trade mission with women entrepreneurs this fall to Florida called Go for the Greens. I was with a delegate from the Trade Commission of Canada and PARO, some women from Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. And so we went to this amazing conference and learned so much. And we were just so inspired by all these women entrepreneurs. Again, that was through a biz growth grant. The networking. And then there's called Northern Ontario Women Grants that PARO, I guess it kind of flows through them, the information. Those grants, they were amazing. I didn't have to put the money up front because a lot of grants that you apply for, you have to pay the money and then get reimbursed. The Northern Ontario Women Grants, they will pay the service provider directly. So I didn't have to front the money. And that's really important because when you're a small business starting up, sometimes you just can't come up with the funds to do these things. So the Now grant, I was able to have lawyer fees paid to incorporate my business, to trademark and copyright like my products. So it pays for things like that. It pays for a sales strategy, different things like some types of equipment that's necessary for the wild rice roasting. Peer circles, that's another thing with PARO. Really good. You just other women entrepreneurs, peer support, networking. It's just this nice little group. There's several of them. Our Gemstone 2 group, we won, I believe it was Peer Group of the Year last year. So we just Lori Paris, who's kind of the founder of our group, she's always been there for me, even when I was Mustang Sally. If I have a question about business or, Thunder Bay, the city guidelines for certain things, I know I can call her anytime. So that's really good.
The peer.
Oh, sorry.
No, now we're both. Sorry, I was just going to say the peer lending model is a really, really successful for women too, right? Like there's been statistics and the research that we've done and the research that we've conducted on our own. Like women are 7 times more likely to be successful if they're surrounded by a circle of peer support. And PARO has over 200 circles across, and all some of them have been around for 25, 28 years, right?
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes if you don't have like the financial literacy, a history, a credit rating, starting with the microloan, it's something. It builds your credit rating.
Yep. Some women have told us in the past, like, that $500, it might seem like not a lot, but that's an inventory. That's a month of inventory.
That's what I used it for.
Right.
Was to buy tea.
Yeah.
Other resources in Thunder Bay, the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Centre. They all have business development, funding, grants. So they're really good. NADF, Anishinaabe Development Fund. As an Indigenous entrepreneur, I qualified for their I got a microloan from them too when I first started, different grants. They do financial literacy webinars. They have business advisors. And so there really are a lot of resources in Thunder Bay. CIDC, Community Economic Development through the city. Like they have conferences and, webinars and events. So there's tons of resources. And I just say, take advantage of these resources. It's free. Like most things are free and people are there. They want to help you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And PARO is part of a huge ecosystem of support for women entrepreneurs, right? We've got folks at Spark Center. We've got the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge up there. We're a part of this big network of people who just want to see women be successful in their business development journey. But so that's great. If anybody in the audience has any further questions about any of those kind of resources, again, just feel free to visit www.paro.ca or give us a call. And that's something that we can definitely connect you with because it's broad, it's vast. PARO has hundreds of community partners across the province, so it's great. Another question for you, Denise. If you could, and maybe you wouldn't do anything differently. Maybe you're happy just the way you did it. If you could go back and do it all over again, was there anything that you would change?
Probably not. It's been an exciting journey. It's been a great learning experience. There's been challenges, but I've met some amazing people, like in the tea world, in the wild rice world, in the organization world, like PARO, like all these people I've met. It's just so gratifying to know them and to chat with them and be a part of each other's business and lives. Like it's been great.
I love that. So just thinking, because you're quite involved, right? Like you're involved with a lot of peer women, other women entrepreneurs, and in the business world, kind of more broadly. Can you talk a little bit about, like, from your perspective, what do you see as some of the major roadblocks for entrepreneurs, and maybe specifically women entrepreneurs, and even more so maybe Indigenous women entrepreneurs? Can you talk a little bit about the kind of challenges that folks might face with that kind of intersecting identity, but challenges as a women entrepreneur trying to make it in this economic world?
From my perspective, your own mind, the negative self-talk, the imposter syndrome. Like, doing this interview is way outside my comfort zone. But you know what? Our stories need to be heard. Like, I'm not a public speaker, but we need to tell our stories. Another roadblock, self-care. I think I can do it all. I don't want to ask help. I can, it's like, you know what? There's professionals out there that can help you. It's like, ask for help. The other thing as an entrepreneur, limiting your work hours. I guess that's part of self-care. Take a day off.
Life-work balance. Yep.
Enjoy your hobbies. Put down the phone. Go off grid. Like this summer, we're work. And I did burn out. So we have this little trailer. We would go away on the weekend, go places that had no cell coverage. It's like, just go out, be on the land, go for a walk, do something. So
Yeah,
that's a
unplug.
roadblock is, and you know, it does affect your success. You need to, like you said, have a good work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we've seen that now more than ever, especially through the COVID stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where either things are going really well or things are going really hard. One of the things that we focus on at PARO is that kind of 5 asset area of the sustainable livelihoods model, right? So you've got your different strengths, including your financial, your personal, your human,
Yeah.
your spiritual, right? And if one is all of the parts of you have to be kind of nurtured to be a successful anything,
Yes.
right? If you're having a hard time with your personal connections or your social connections, you're going to have a hard time with lots of other things, right? You got to have a kind of a solid background in all aspects of your human experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's
everything.
really important. I think that's another thing that's really important for women too, right? Because we're often we're the caretakers, we're the we're
breadwinners. Sometimes we're the backbones of our families and
yeah,
communities.
absolutely.
And, you know,
yeah. And yeah, not just if you have kids, but all your, everybody, if you do have kids, right? So it's
exactly.
There's a lot of expectations that fall on the shoulders of women, and that's still very much a thing. And I think we did see that through COVID. Women were disproportionately affected by the pandemic, right? So all that to say, it's important to nurture your whole self if you want to be successful, right? And that means taking breaks sometimes too. Not pointing any fingers, but I'm just saying. No, just kidding. So just kind of speaking on that, just to kind of get more into the kind of personal connections too. Are there any particular experiences in your life or your career prior to entrepreneurship that helped you to be successful in your business?
When I think of my family really, and my history with my family helped me be successful. Like I said, I come from strong women, strong matriarchs who were hardworking, and that's what I knew women to be, is like, you can do it. You can do this. You can do whatever you want. So that, growing up very close in a close-knit extended family, Indigenous family, I think that made me who I am today and gave me the strength to do these things that, like this, outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I just put on my moccasins and I know they're with me.
Yeah, exactly.
My family.
The path that walked before you, right? Before you. Yeah. So maybe on that, kind of taking from that, the answer to that question is kind of related, but what message would you want to give other female entrepreneurs and maybe other Indigenous female entrepreneurs? What's your kind of take home piece of advice for them?
Women are leading right now. Like, this is our time. You're never too old. You're never too young. Do what you want to do. Like, just, and what I'm doing, like, as an entrepreneur, people sometimes think, oh, that's just a hobby. No, like, do what you love. Yeah, maybe it is a hobby, but you can sometimes make a living off of it too, and do what you're passionate about. And I just think, like I said, you're never too old. My mom was, my late mother, she was teaching the Ojibwe language. Well, she was almost 80 years old. And I remember when she turned 65, she said, I don't feel 65. And like, I'm 55. I don't feel 55. It's like, age is just a number. It's just, it's never too late to start something that you want to do. Just don't settle. Don't settle for, a job that you're really not happy doing. You need the job for money, but do something you're passionate about too. So, yeah.
Hey, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Do something you're passionate about. I love that. That's, all these cliches that you hear when you're younger, like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, blah, 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 right? Which,
you'll still work.
You'll still work. You'll work very hard,
a
but it makes it a lot more like enjoyable, right? If you find something that you really love to do. And if we're lucky enough to do that, then we've got a pretty good leg up. We've got a few more minutes here, so I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. I love hearing your story. how do you manage your time, right? Because you're very busy. We talked earlier about protecting like our downtime and making sure, that everything is in balance there. So what do you do to keep that kind of time management strategy committed to, right?
So I have a whiteboard where, like, I look over here. I have this whiteboard where every week I write what's coming up for the following week. I'm old school. I still have, my day planner. So I have like 3 different ways to remember how to do things. I use my phone calendar. I use a hard copy manager calendar. So that's how I organize my life. And the virtual meetings, that's actually pretty good because you save so much time not having to travel places to go to meetings. So I find I do have more time. Sorry, they're cleaning my chimney right
No
now,
worries.
and I can hear them. Sorry
Tis
about
the
that.
season in Thunder Bay. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah. So yeah, I keep to my calendar. Like
Yeah.
I try not to stray from it.
Yeah,
And I stick, 8 to 4. That's kind of my business.
Yeah. And that's actually really simple but good advice, right? Like you can set out the most well-intentioned calendar or to-do list of the day, time blocked and everything. And it's so easy to let that, oh, well, I can just spend an extra 20 minutes on this. That's okay. And then next thing you know, you're looking at the clock and it's 7:30, right? Like, and
I know.
that's a good piece of advice. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular tools or apps aside from your aside from your calendar that you've implemented into your life, technology wise? Is there any kind of piece of technology that's
what my amazing accountant introduced me to is something called Dext, DEXT. It's a receipt scanning app. So she uses QuickBooks. So I take a picture of my receipt because I get stacks of receipts.
Sure.
Whether I'm purchasing things or gassing my car up, whatever. You just take a picture of it and you email it to an email address, and it just gets linked into QuickBooks as like an expense. I don't quite understand it yet. I got to the point where she does it. So I just take the picture and she takes care of everything else. So all I know is I don't have to deal with all these receipts and hard copies. The other thing is mileage tracker on QuickBooks. It's an app on my phone. So that's something really interesting. I turn it on all the time. So if I get in my vehicle to go mail products, it's tracking my mileage. And then you just make notes when you get home and approve it. And again, that all goes to QuickBooks.
Wow.
And a tool I really like for both personal and business is Audible. Listening to a book. If you're spending a lot of time in your vehicle, you can have resource books. You can have, entertaining books. Audible, amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, no, that's a great app too. Yeah, those other ones are interesting. I wrote them down. I'm gonna check them out.
Yeah. I just heard of them last week and I just started them and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to make my life so much easier because when I'm looking at my inbox with a stack of small receipts and all I have to do is take a picture and deal with them. Perfect.
Yeah, no, that's great. I remember a few years ago when they came up with that receipt scanner. Remember you just fed it through so that's even better now that you can just take pictures on your phone.
Take a picture.
And
everybody, pretty much everybody has their smartphone on them all the time.
Right. Yeah. So 2 kind of final questions. We've got about, 10-ish minutes to talk about both of them. So I'll bring them up, both of them at the same time, and then we can kind of go from there. The first one is, what are you hoping to see from the work that you do? And what do you strive for every day? And then after you answer that, the last question is, what's next for T-Horse and for you? So the first one, what are you hoping to see from the work you do? And what do you strive for every day? What's your kind of, what keeps you going?
Again, women of all ages, Indigenous women, we can do this. It doesn't matter where you're located now, especially with, e-commerce. If you're up north, in a remote community, you can have a little e-commerce shop. Like, there's so many things. Like I want to inspire Indigenous women to know that it's like, you can do this. Just if you love it, do it. So that's something that I strive for every day, is to inspire other women and Indigenous women entrepreneurs, to show them it's like, you don't have to have, I mean, it's nice if you had an MBA, but you don't have to be a successful business person. You just have to work really hard. You disappeared. Hello. So Melissa disappeared, and I will just talk about what's next for Tea Horse. So what we're looking to do is export. Export into the US. So hi Melissa, you're back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So I was just talking about what's next for me and for Tea Horse. So exporting is what we're really ramping up to do. B2B exporting. So like I said, I attended the trade mission, official trade mission with the trade commissioner to go for the Greens in Florida, Women's Entrepreneur Conference, where I made a lot of contacts and learned about, it's a different culture there, really. I mean, they're just across the border, but it is a different culture. If, as far as even packaging, I sell my products in grams, where it would be ounces there. So I learned a lot about the different packaging, different marketing. And then couple of weeks ago, I attended a Native Women Lead conference and retreat in New Mexico, just north of Albuquerque, where I was surrounded, and it was amazing, by like 250 Indigenous women.
Oh, wow. That must have been powerful.
It was powerful. It was amazing. So again, I got a lot of networking there. There were a few Canadian companies, Indigenous Canadian companies there. So we did a lot of networking. My next export trade mission is to Phoenix, Arizona at the beginning of December. So we're going to be pitching to Native American resorts and casinos. We're going to be visiting different reservations, meeting with the tribal leaders of the local reservations and where a lot of these big resorts are. So export is what's on our agenda.
Awesome. I love that. That's very exciting. And yeah, what a great way to do it too. Those trade missions are cool. So
yes.
Yeah.
And again, like with the trade mission for Go for the Greens, leading up to it, every week we would have a meeting. There was consultants to walk us through our capability statement, which I had never heard of. It's just a statement that shows your capacity, what you do, talks about you, your client base, your certifications, affiliations. That's something that I think that I would recommend to women entrepreneurs is get certified. Get certified as a woman entrepreneur. Get certified as an Indigenous minority supplier. CAMC is something, Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier. So when you have these certifications, corporations, large companies, they're looking to work with you. So it's really helpful to have that, on your capability statement, your website.
Yeah, right on.
The other thing I didn't touch on at all, I don't know how much time we have.
A few minutes.
Okay, so we, small business from Thunder Bay, doing this amazing, innovative tea product. We were approached by Canada's largest retailer, David's Tea, over a year ago. Got this email wondering if we'd be interested in doing like a partnership collaboration. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, is this for real? So I did some research, and sure enough, it was, the product development director and his manager who reached out. So we started meeting. We decided, okay, this is something really exciting we're going to do. So for a year, we worked, back and forth doing tea tastings, developing the flavor profile, what was going to be in it, what the marketing was going to be. what the name of it, I actually named the product called Manoomin Maple. So it was launched in the spring on the David's Tea website, and it was one of their best selling launch teas ever.
Yeah.
It was the first time David's Tea ever worked with another tea company, but they just think what we're doing is so innovative because, you know, no one in the tea world is doing it.
Sure.
So that's really exciting, and they have come back to us, and we're actually working. We're working on another blend, so that should be released sometime next year. So
Yay.
yeah, it's really exciting to be recognized by these large companies when you're a micro company, but doing something really innovative. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing success story. I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I can't wait to see what you guys do in the future, and we'll be watching you every step of the way, I'm sure. We've got one question from the audience here, and we've got about 6 minutes left till we do the closing. So the question is, how do you describe failure in business? And maybe, describe that kind of failure and what you learned from it to do better afterward.
How do I describe failure? I guess failure is like when you've run out of money. I don't know. Like most failures, you can come out of it. Like it depends, I guess. If you want to continue, you can work at it to make it happen. I don't know. Like I don't know. Melissa,
I think that's a good point. Well, I think that's a good point. I think that, it's like with anything in life, when you fail, if that's the word you want to use, or something messes up, or like there's learning opportunities in everything.
Yeah, it's a learning. Right? Yeah, it's a learning tool. Okay, this didn't work. Yeah. Okay, let's try this instead. Yeah. So
and if you like you said, exactly. And if you want to keep going, then you say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. Here's what I'm going to do instead. And sometimes it's a series of failures that lead up to the most huge successful businesses of all time. Right?
And I don't know if I'd even use the word failure.
I probably
challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Sure.
This is a challenge. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. So it depends what your goal is.
Yeah.
Too, so
yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. Like, and I'm just throwing cliches out all over the place today, but not to be another cliche, but attitude really is everything, right? Like if you kind of experience something that's negative or what can be seen as like a failure or a challenge, if you want to move on, and if you can figure out a way to kind of use that information to make your processes better, your products better, your services better, then that's a win in my book, right? Like I think that's a win. So as long as
exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes, just more planning. Something's failed or is a challenge. Okay, look at the big picture and think, what can I do next? What shouldn't I do? Yeah. So again, it's to me, failure. I don't know if I'd use that word. it's great. A challenge.
Yeah. And I hope everybody in business can come to it with that attitude, because you can, like you said, you can do it. You can do it. It's not a failure. It's a challenge. You're going to experience a lot of challenges, and you build your network of support, and you build your people around you, and your resources, and your apps, and your plans, and whatever, and just keep doing the best you can, and you'll do wonders. You'll amaze yourself probably. So thanks, Denise. That was the last question that we have. I know we could probably sit here for another 4 hours and just chat, but that is the end of our time. So I just wanted to mention again, of course, thank you so much for joining us, Denise. That was really wonderful. And thanks to Spark Centre for inviting Denise and myself to come. Did you have any final words that you wanted to say before I wrap up?
I just want to say miigwech to you and to Spark Centre. I really enjoyed this. And like I said, it's outside my comfort zone, but you made it really comfortable. It's like just chatting to a friend. So it was great.
Right on.
So if I can do it, anybody can.
Atta girl. I love that attitude. Well, miigwech for joining, Denise. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again soon. Can't wait to see what you guys do next. Okay. Thanks. Have a good day. Okay, folks, so this Startup Grind was, of course, proudly presented by Spark Centre in partnership with PARO Centre for Women's Enterprise. The PARO link flashed up on your screen a few times, and we can put it in the comments as well if you want to check out how PARO can support your small business or your medium business or your large business, any business women-owned business across Ontario. Also, we are having our annual event next week. which is featuring some pretty awesome speakers, keynote event speakers, and also workshops and other networking opportunities. There's an in-person component and also a virtual component. So that's also on our website. Check it out at www.paro.ca. Wanted to let everybody know too that Spark Centre does not host a startup grind in the month of December, but be sure to stay tuned for their special page on their social pages, because they'll be posting more information around that for details about the January event. And now it's time for your networking. So if you wish to join us, you can navigate to that section by hitting the networking icon on the left side of your screen. You should see that there. You'll be paired up with one person at a time for 3 minutes. So you can use this time to get to know each other. And you'll have the option to extend the session if you guys really hit it off and you want to keep chatting. Once the time is up, you can press ready, and Hopin will automatically move you to the next person. So you don't have to do any kind of shuffling. But then just click the connect button. You'll see that there too, if you'd like to exchange contact information with anybody and continue your conversation offline. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you at the networking part. Thank you.